I don't think you're going to believe what I'm about to tell you. I just received another conviction letter from Justin Trudeau's elections commissioner. He's personally found me guilty for a second time of writing an illegal book about Trudeau back in 2019 called The Libranos, What the Media Won't Tell You About Justin Trudeau's Corruption. The book, its front cover, my tweets about it, our promotion of the book across the country. Trudeau's elections commissioner had senior officers investigating me, tracking our staff, creeping through our social media. And they say it's illegal. And they now demand that I pay thousands of dollars in fines. You probably think I'm exaggerating or even just making it up. So I've put the police state-style letter online at thelibranos.com for you to see for yourself. This 14-page letter convicting me is there, including the thousands of dollars in fines. I've also put their past convictions to me online at the same website, and my lawyer's submissions too. I think the craziest thing on that website is a hidden camera video I recorded of my 1-hour interrogation at the hands of 2 senior ex-RCMP officers who are now on censorship patrol. I mean, it's like that book, Fahrenheit 451, about the government's official book burners. By the way, if you don't realize this is all a test drive for their plan to censor the internet, I think you're missing their point. I'm the test case. You're next. So go to thelibranos.com for that. If you're new to this story, you probably don't know how nuts it is to have 2 30-year ex-RCMP veterans who used to be on the counterterrorism beat ask you questions like, why didn't you register your book with the government before criticizing the Prime Minister?
The knowledge that you would have or not have of the Election Act, the Canada Elections Act, when you are planning the book and the new third-party rules, because I believe there's some comments on your site as well about that, did you give any consideration of saying, maybe I should register as a third party for this circumstance, or maybe I shouldn't because of my interpretation of what I'm going to do, or did you not make that determination?
How crazy is it to be told that you can't even see the complaint against you, let alone know who complained?
Can I see the complaint against me?
The letter that you received?
No. I presume that you're investigating based on a complaint, yeah.
Oh, this is still part of the investigation, so we'll have to, once the investigation's been completed, the commissioner will have to make a decision, and at that point, he'll have to decide if that is releasable or not. It's not something that usually is released, no.
So it's a secret complaint?
It's not a secret complaint, it's just a complaint that's part of the investigation. And to keep the integrity of the investigation right now, you'll understand that we can't share everything that we have.
I don't want everything that you had. If I'm here to meet a complaint, but you won't show me the complaint, how can I possibly meet the complaint? How can I possibly respond to something that you won't show me?
Well, though, I think the letter was quite clear on what the infraction is alleged, and this is what we want to clarify with you.
Well, did you generate the complaint, or was it from an outside party?
No, we didn't generate the complaint.
Okay, so someone
did not generate the complaint.
So someone external to your office generated the complaint?
That is usually the case.
Is that the case in this case?
Yeah. Yeah, we did not generate the complaint.
Okay, was it the Liberal Party that generated the complaint?
We can't go into that, sir.
So you won't tell me who the complaint is? The complainant is? That's a secret?
Yeah, no, not at this point.
So at what point do you tell me who the
commissioner is the ultimate responsible person for the investigation and how this is decided.
So how do I know what conduct has been complained about if you won't tell me?
And talk about creepy, those cops wanted to know who we hire at Rebel News and why.
All right, so moving forward. So for the book, you seek volunteers that, and without going back to the tape to get the exact quote, that wanted to have had a certain view on Trudeau and Gerald Butts, and believed in free speech, and that were embarrassed by the Prime Minister Trudeau in blackface, and you saw that specific type of person. Is that correct? I want to go back when you were doing your recruiting for people and how you described them. Can you go over that again for me, type of people you were looking for? So in that, you were seeking these people for what purpose? Because you explained to us the type of people you were seeking. What was the purpose?
Well, not to brag, but I think they're after us because the Libranos was a #1 bestseller, more than 1,000 5-star ratings from readers, meticulously researched 289 footnotes proving my assertions. I think that's why Trudeau hates the book so much. It's embarrassing to him, and he hates to be embarrassed. He's not used to anyone criticizing him. He fires cabinet ministers who dare to speak back to him, even the former Justice Minister, Jody Wilson-Raybould. 99% of Canada's media is obedient to Trudeau, but he just obsesses about that last 1% that's still independent. That's why he's had a dozen police and bureaucrats and lawyers investigating me for nearly 2 years. I think he's obsessed with this book. I was convicted already once this year, but my lawyers immediately appealed. We gave notice of our appeal in February, and Trudeau's elections commissioner waited until now, just weeks before this year's election is called, to convict me again. I think he's trying to send me a message not to criticize Trudeau during this next election. Hey, do you think I'm going to obey him? He says my book is illegal. He says I'm not allowed to write a book that criticizes Trudeau during an election campaign. He says that makes it the same as a political party ad. And so I have to register my book with the government, and I can't promote my book because that's campaign ads. He's making that all up, by the way. There were 24 books published about Trudeau in the last election campaign. For example, there were 23 pro-Trudeau books like this one by Aaron Wary, the government journalist who works at Trudeau's CBC. And here's a book by John Ivison, who works for Post Media, which is the largest recipient of Trudeau's newspaper bailout. So none of the 23 pro-Trudeau books published at exactly the same time as my book, none of them were investigated or convicted or fined, just mine. Now, my lawyers pointed that out in my appeal, and here's what Trudeau's election commissioner said today. He said, in its submissions, Rebel News argued that it has been treated unfairly and in a selective manner in this matter because 2 other books identified by Rebel News as allegedly promoting the Prime Minister and that were published during the election period were not investigated by my office. This argument cannot be given effect to. As commissioner under Section 510 of the Act, I cannot be prevented from investigating a case for the reason that there are other cases that could or should also be investigated. Relevant case law supports this position. Well, it's actually 23 other pro-Trudeau books, not 2, but he's not denying that I'm the only author who was prosecuted, even though they were all published at the same time. In fact, he's sort of bragging about that. He's saying he knows about other Trudeau books. Sure he does. He's aware of them. But he's just chosen only to prosecute me, and he should be allowed to do that because, seriously, he actually gives no reason. Go read the letter for yourself. I just told you what he said. He says he can pick and choose who he's going after, and he's just chosen to do that. And what are you going to do about it, peasant? You see, the process is the punishment. The stigma is the punishment. He's not really mad about books during the election, just books that criticize Trudeau. Now, you're probably wondering, since when do we prosecute books at all? Forget this weird Trudeau commissioner who says he gets to pick and choose when to uphold the law. Why does he get to prosecute any books at all? I don't want him to prosecute any authors, not me, not the pro-Trudeau authors. We're not China or Iran. We don't prosecute authors in Canada. And in fact, the law specifically has a books exemption. And the promotion of those books, ads, websites, lawn signs, billboards, whatever, anything that sells a book is exempt from these election laws, which my lawyers pointed out. But look at this. Here's his reply. The book exemption argument. Rebel News relies on what it calls the book promotion exemption, found in the definition of election advertising in subsection 2 of the Act. The relevant portion of the provision at paragraph 2 under election advertising clarifies that for greater certainty, election advertising does not include the distribution of a book or the promotion of the sale of a book for no less than its commercial value if the book was planned to be made available to the public regardless of whether there was to be an election. It is clear from the underlined passage that the so-called book exemption applies only in relation to a book that would have been published whether or not the election was called. Okay, just stop for a moment. My book costs $15, which is priced fairly. They don't quarrel with that. It meets that test. And of course I'd publish it whether or not there was an election. That's a really weird test. If there was no election, we'd have a constitutional crisis. Section 4 of our Charter of Rights requires that there be an election every 5 years. If in some insane situation there was no election, of course I'd have published the book and probably given a much stronger title than the Libranos. But look at this sneaky little Trudeau weasel. Here's how he gets around that. He says, the book exemption does not apply. I am of the view that the clarification of paragraph 2 of the Act does not apply in this case because Rebel News had planned the launch of the book to coincide with the election. Okay, hang on, but the law doesn't say I can't time the book to coincide with an election. Every election book is timed for the election. It wouldn't make sense to publish a book about an election a week after the election. A lot more books about Trump being published in 2020 than in 2021. These Trudeau boys are just making this up to get me. They're saying the fact that I wanted people to read my book before the election makes it an illegal book. But that's not what the law says. But it gets weirder. The next few pages, pages 6, 7, 8, 9 in the letter, you can see it all at the Libranos.com, is a partial list of the things that Trudeau's police did to spy on us. They creeped our social media pages. They looked at photos published by our staff. They watched my shows. They tracked me. These are just the things they admit to. I don't know if they tapped my phone or hacked our computers or even sent a spy into our office. They certainly put a lot of manpower on this. And like I say, the two cops who grilled me were former counterterrorism Mounties. They had a whole police squad on this. They gave it a name, the Compliance Unit. And the crime these cops were looking for was anything that was mean to Trudeau and his friends. I'm not kidding. See for yourself. Here's page 8 of the letter. Other evidentiary elements identified in the Compliance Unit recommendation report established that the lawn signs were intended to oppose the Liberal Party and the election of its leader and certain members of the cabinet whose pictures were also included on the lawn signs. By using the word the Libranos and by showing edited pictures of the Prime Minister, Trudeau, and of some members of the cabinet, Rebel News intended most likely to oppose the Liberal Party of Canada and its leader. Therefore, in my view, Rebel News' lawn signs campaign was designed to oppose the Liberal Party of Canada and the election of some of the candidates. They're talking about one of our promotion devices, which was we had little signs that said, buy the book. But they're mad. And you can see what they're mad about. They're mad that we use a dollar sign for the S in Libranos. They seriously put that in their official reasons for convicting me. And they're mad that we made an artistic interpretation of Trudeau and his henchmen. By the way, I think they all look great. I think they have I think it takes a bit of a guilty mind to think they look like crooks, but I think they all look handsome there. But is this really what Canada's elections police and RCMP are spending almost 2 years on? I mean, by the way, the signs just said, buy the book. Those were the only 3 words on them besides the Libranos. But let's say I concede their point. Of course I want Canadians to oppose Trudeau. I don't think I'm shy about that. I'm pretty sure I told that to the counterterrorism RCMP who grilled me for an hour. I'm not denying that I oppose Trudeau or that my book does. I'm saying it's my right to oppose Trudeau and that Trudeau and his cops are the creepy ones here. And anyone who puts cops on a 2-year investigation of an author, they're the ones who are probably breaking the law. There is specifically a book exemption and an exemption for the promotion of books right in the law. And it specifically covers ads for the books. And it says nothing about timing a book to coincide with a campaign. because that would be really dumb. I mean, I'm talking Trudeau level dumb, maybe even Seamus O'Regan level dumb to think books aren't timed for elections. It's natural to criticize politicians. It's actually our right to do so. And you know what? I think I might do so again this year in this election. I shouldn't have to answer to the police for that. But look at this creepiness from Trudeau's henchmen. Paragraph 35 on page 10, see for yourself at the Libranos.com. Investigators gathered many screen captures from Rebel News' Twitter account showing that Rebel News distributed its lawn signs during the election period in various places across the country. Again, to be clear, those lawn signs simply say, "Buy the book." Can you imagine if Stephen Harper had directed police to track social media photos of journalists who criticized him? Could you imagine the uproar if he had done so? And if he put Mounties on the file? I've instructed my lawyers to appeal this ridiculous new conviction, to take it to a real court and out of the hands of Trudeau's henchmen. We're going to appeal to the Federal Court of Canada, real judges. I know that the fines here are only a few $1,000s, and that appealing this to the federal court, and if need be to the Federal Court of Appeal, and if need be to the Supreme Court of Canada, I know each of those steps will probably cost $100,000. This isn't about the money, though. If it were about the money, I would just pay the few $1,000s and move on. But do you think that would be the right thing, to have police investigate authors because the book cover is mean to Trudeau and his cronies? They put that in their ruling here. Because the publication date of the book is inconvenient for Trudeau, I don't get to publish my book when he says I can't. An election boss who spends more time and money investigating a Canadian citizen author than foreign interference from China or actual vote fraud? Trudeau's election boss who thinks he has the power to censor an author and put cops on a 2-year hunt of Trudeau's enemies? And to tell me when I can or can't publish my book and how I can tell people to buy it? And do you not see that this is all a trial run of things to come? If Trudeau wins this election, which he probably will, do you not see that he will apply this same censorship to his critics online too, through his new internet regulation bills, C10, C36? Don't you see? This isn't about a few $1,000s in fines. It's not even really about my book, The Libranos, even though he really hates that book. It's about anyone who dares to criticize the thin-skinned little bully who wants total control of all political discourse in Canada. He couldn't buy us off like the rest of the media, so he wants to shut us down. No, see you in court. And friends, if you can help me cover the cost of this legal appeal, please do. It's not about the money. It's about stopping a political bully who thinks he can tell authors when they're allowed to write books and when they're not, and what they're allowed to put on their book covers and their book ads, and what they're not. Look, I know Trudeau admires China, he's told us, and I know this is what they do in China, but it's not what we do here in Canada. Go to the Libranos.com to read this 14-page conviction letter for yourself. And while you're there, if you can, please chip in to help me appeal this ruling to the Federal Court of Canada. Thank you. This is my book, The Libranos. I wrote it 2 years ago. Trudeau's still prosecuting me for it. I just got another conviction, thousands of dollars of fines. I got to appeal it. Please go to thelibranos.com to see the conviction letter and help me crowdfund my legal appeal. Thanks.